Garrett swore it would be an hour, tops. He said it like a cashier saying, next, easy and automatic. 1 foot in my doorway and his hand already reaching for the keys on the hook. My name is Jasmine Ramos. I'm 26. I open a bakery at 6 a.m. and I keep my life on a tight schedule because if I don't, it slides. I rent a small second-floor apartment over a hair braiding shop on Cedar and 9th, 3 blocks from the number 12 bus. My car is a silver 2011 Corolla with a teal Support Local Bakers bumper sticker and a trunk that rattles if I hit potholes on Pine. The spare key hangs on a nail by my kitchen light switch. I don't take it off the nail unless I have to. It's Tuesday, Garrett said, grinning. Like that answered something. He's my cousin, 27, the kind of charming that makes waiters laugh and parking attendants wave him through. I gotta drop some papers before 5 and swing by a place. Can't wait. An hour for real. I'll fill your tank. It's 4:15, I said. I'd been home since noon, laundry folded, shoes by the door, alarm set for 4:40 a.m. I open tomorrow. I know Jazz, he said, and dipped his voice into the soft spot where family lives. Blood, help me out. I'll be right back. He lifted the key ring and jingled it like I'd already agreed. I did the math anyway. The drop-off, the swing by, the gas stop. He sees clocks as ideas. I see them as boxes to check. I looked past him at the slant of late sun on the opposite building and thought about the walk to the bakery in the dark if he wasn't back. 1 hour, I said. I need it by 6 a.m. at the latest. An hour, he promised, then kissed the air next to my cheek and jogged down the stairs. He drives like someone who thinks yellow means prove it. And the Corolla's engine note faded fast. I put the keys off the hook in my head, left the spare where it was, put my phone on the counter and went back to my list, wiped counters, packed breakfast for tomorrow, set out the work shoes. At 5:20 I texted, all good. Running late, came back, tomorrow, promise. I stared at the bubbles and typed, you said an hour, then deleted it. It's not that I'm scared to press send. It's that I've learned which messages just echo. My Aunt Angela, Garrett's mother, 55, good at smoothing everything until it shines, has said since we were kids, he's good for it, and sometimes he is, late. My Uncle William, 56, lifts a brow and keeps grilling. By 7, I reheated leftovers and ate them over the sink. By 9, I set my alarm and tried to sleep around the empty space in the lot below my window. The shape of my car's absence sat in my chest like a door I'd forgotten to lock. My 4:40 a.m. alarm cut through heavy dreams. I checked my phone before my feet hit the floor. No new messages. I brushed my teeth, put on my bakery t-shirt, laced my black non-slip shoes, and listened for the buzz that didn't come. The street outside was quiet, the hair shop dark, the air wet and cold. The number 12 doesn't run often before 5, and by the time it got to Cedar, it would make me late. I put the spare key in my pocket, then made myself take it back out and hang it on the nail. I didn't want to start this day by lying to my future self. The walk is 35 minutes if I keep pace. I hugged my jacket tighter and counted porch lights. A raccoon knocked something over in an alley, and I startled, then laughed at myself and kept moving. My calves burned by maple, then settled. The city before sunrise is mine for a little while. Trash trucks, a jogger, the smell of damp grass, and someone's bacon 3 buildings over. The bakery sits on 3rd and Larkin, 3 blocks from the river, windows fogged by the ovens we never really let cool. I got there at 5:56, breath clouding, and let myself in with the rolling shutter half open. The stainless counters reflected me back. Hair pulled tight, sweatshirt under the apron, eyes with not enough sleep. I fired up the mixers and checked the proofing baskets and did not check my phone more than once. At 7:12, a text. Yo, got caught up. I'll swing by later. Tomorrow latest. Later today, I typed. Then I deleted today and just wrote, I need my car to get to work. Green bubble sent. Red, no reply. I wiped sugar off the floor while muffins rose and pretzels boiled. I made change for a woman who wanted a dozen iced cookies for her office. I took 2 Advil at 9 and told myself I'd nap after my shift, if I wasn't walking home too. Trinity, my little sister 22, steady in ways that don't make noise, texted a meme about coffee and a heart. I sent back a thumbs up because I didn't want to get into it yet. She'll drive if I ask, but she works nights sometimes, and I hate asking if the need is my own soft boundary. By sunset Wednesday, Garrett sent another, tomorrow promise, like the word had become punctuation. I turned off my living room lamp and let the street wash its yellow over my wall. The Demauern 12 timetable glared up from the coffee table. I set my alarm again. By day 2, I was still walking, and Garrett was still promising tomorrow. By the 3rd morning, the air bit hard enough that my breath came out in little ghosts under the streetlights. Friday, 5 a.m., same route. My calves knew every crack in the sidewalk by then. Garrett had texted tomorrow, promise, twice since Tuesday. Wednesday night, and again Thursday at sunset. My name is still Jasmine, still 26, still the one with the 6 a.m. key. The Corolla was still gone from the lot below my window. The spare stayed on the nail by my kitchen light switch. I had looked at it twice, hand up, then let it hang. If I took it, that would be me managing his choices. I make enough dough at work. I'm not needing my family, too. Yesterday, Layla slid me a ride after her shift, tossed me a hop-in with her elbow as she balanced a tray of croissants and her car keys. She dropped me 3 blocks from my place and didn't make it a thing. I thanked her and said I'd be fine tomorrow. That was true for the walking part. The rest scraped. Friday, I watched the number 12 rumble past the other side of Cedar while I crossed against the blinking hand. If I waited for the next one, I'd be late. So I walked faster. The sky went from black to wet blue while I counted porch lights, 12 on Cedar, 9 on Oak, 6 on Larkin. My fingers stung inside my sleeves, then went numb. A delivery truck hissed to a stop outside the bakery as I turned the corner. 6:04. I slid the shutter up, keyed in, and apologized out loud to the empty mixers. Edward came in at 6:20, hung his jacket, and clocked me with his eyes. He doesn't yell. He speaks in temps and times. He waited until the first batch of baguettes had hit the oven, and I was at the triple sink, arms damp to the elbow, before he walked over. You're good, Jazz, he said quietly, looking at a spot on the stainless. Not my face. But I can't have you late. I know, I said. Hot water ran over my wrists. It won't. Call me if you need me to cover 10 minutes, he said softer. Once. Maybe twice. Not a thing we do. Got it. I rinsed a bowl and stacked it. He nodded and moved back to the schedule book. He never asks why. He knows enough to know we all have reason and that the croissants don't rise for any of them. At 7-Eleven, my phone buzzed on the flowery prep table. Garrett. Traffic was crazy. I can swing by later. At 8:02, had to help Tobias with a lift. He was stuck. At 8:37, quick stop turned into a longer thing. Don't stress. I wiped my hands on a towel and typed, I open at 6, then erased it. I tried my mother's old trick, count to 10, 1, 2, 3. My thumb hovered over the screen. 4, 5. Numbers don't make buses run more often. I put the phone face down and pulled a tray of cinnamon rolls to glaze. Between the morning rush and the lull, Layla leaned one hip against the counter and stared at the boxes. You get your car back yet? Nope. She squinted. You want me to swing you close to home after? I'm headed toward Ninth anyway. You did yesterday, I said. I won't ask twice. You didn't ask. She blew a stray bang out of her eye. You going to light him up? Trying not to set anything on fire in a bakery, I said, and she huffed a laugh and pushed off the counter. She's practical. She knows when something is a choice and when it's a mess. The lunch orders printed. I lined up baguettes and turkey and kept the slices even. A woman asked for a dozen iced cookies in the shape of stars. I boxed them and tied the twine just tight enough. The rhythm helped. Cut, spread, wrap, charge. The register drawer thunked closed heavy with small bills. Every time my phone buzzed, that little ripple went through me anyway. At noon, Garrett again. I'll get it to you tonight. Promise. I typed, tonight what time? He didn't answer. On break, I stepped out back and leaned against the cool brick. The alley smelled like proofing yeast and damp cardboard. I scrolled up through his messages. Traffic, Tobias, longer thing, same rhythm, different excuses. I hated the way my chest went tight when I recognized the pattern. I don't like feeling predictable. Trinity texted at 12:18. You seen Charlotte Lee's new photos? My stomach fell like I'd missed a step. Charlotte lives down the block from me. She posts everything. Cats, porch plants, Sunday plates. We're mutuals because of family barbecues and borrowing eggs. I didn't want to see my car living some other life on her page. I didn't want to be wrong either, thinking the worst when maybe it was just selfies and her tabby curled like a croissant. I watched the typing dots from my sister, then nothing. The oven timer beeped inside, and I pushed off the wall. I went back in, set another tray to cool, and told myself I'd look after the next batch. My hands were steady. My head wasn't. I checked Charlotte Lee's page on my second break. I wiped my hands, turned my phone brightness down, and scrolled. Her new album was Weekend Roundup with a sunflower emoji, a paper plate with ribs, a dog in a kiddie pool, 2 guys I didn't know playing cornhole, a backyard I didn't recognize, chain link fence with morning glories, not my uncle's wood slats, no silver Corolla, no teal sticker. Trinity texted right after, different house, from Sunday, I think. Yeah, I wrote back, not us. I slid the phone in my apron and went back to the slicer. The blade hummed. The lunch rush hit like it always does. Fast orders, regulars who don't look up from their phones, a kid with frosting on his nose. I placed cookies in a white box and tied twine. I refilled the ice bin. I didn't think about the new hour 12 because thinking doesn't make it arrive faster. At 1:47, my phone buzzed again. A DM from Madison. She lives 2 blocks over. Sometimes buys day-old baguettes for croutons. Hey, weird Q, is your car the one with the teal baker sticker? Yes, I typed. Why? Saw it downtown like 20 minutes ago, she wrote. 3rd and Juniper. Bright paper under the wiper. Thought it was a flyer, then realized it looked like a ticket. I circled to check, but it was gone when I came back. I leaned back against the flour bags and let air out slow. How sure? I wrote. Pretty sure, she wrote. That sticker is loud, LOL. Thanks for telling me, I typed. If you see it again, can you text me? I owe you a scone. Deal, she sent, and a croissant emoji. I put the phone down on the prep table and watched the green message light blink, then steadied my breath. Ticket meant the car had been parked, not stolen to a chop shop. Ticket also meant money. I picked up a clean towel and wiped the same clean spot twice. At 2:05, I texted Garrett, "Where's my car today?" No answer. At 2:41, "Where are you with my car right now?" 3 dots, then a selfie rolled in. Garrett grinning, thumb up, a plastic cup in his other hand, the corner of someone's deck behind him. Caption, "Chill, I got you." I looked at his face for a long beat, then typed, "Where?" No reply. The dots appeared, went away, appeared again, then nothing. Count to 10, I told myself. I made it to 6 before a bell dinged and I had to swap a tray. When I looked back, my screen was still quiet. Edward did a slow walk past the front at 3, checked the pastry case, checked me. I kept my hands moving. He said nothing, which was its own kind of speech. We closed the front at 4 to clean. I hosed the mats out back and water spattered my shins. My phone buzzed twice in my apron. Trinity, you okay? Fine, I wrote. Working. She sent back a thumbs up and then, a minute later, want me to swing by after my class? I can take you to the store if you need stuff. I'm good, I wrote. Thank you. Inside, Layla was scraping caramel off a sheet pan. You get a pin on him? She asked without looking up. He sent me a party face, I said. She blew out a small, dry laugh. Men who say relax are never the ones who handle the thing. I threw the wet mats over the rack and watched water drip. I don't like broadcasting, but I also don't like pretending I don't see what I see. The math is easy, miles, minutes, money, but sometimes the part that costs the most is the ask. At 4:37, I locked the side door. The street smelled like wet bread and river air. My feet ached. I pictured my car where it should be, and then pictured it with a white slip tucked under the wiper. I pictured Garrett not picturing me at all. I walked the first 10 minutes home. Then the Gachetwerp pulled up behind me at Oak, and someone rang off. I got on because it was there, and because my legs were one long soft burn. I stood swaying and watched the stores go by, the pawn shop, the phone repair, the place that sells rugs out of a van. When I got upstairs, the light in the hair shop blinked on and off as they swept. My living room stayed dim and square. The nail by my switch held the spare key like a small dare. I touched it, then let it hang. I sat on the arm of my couch and opened the family group chat. It's a mess of recipes and reminders and Aunt Angela's good morning gifts. I typed slow so I didn't have to erase. Who knows where Garrett is with my car right now, I wrote. I watched the little profile circles bob as people read. Then I set the phone face down on the coffee table and listened to the neighbor's TV 2 walls over while I waited. The family chat lit up with the little circles as people read. Aunt Angela answered first, fast enough that I knew she already had a line ready. He's helping your Uncle William with something. Don't be dramatic, she wrote. Then nothing. A heart floated up from a cousin who hearts everything and probably didn't make it past he's. I typed, I need my car to open at 6, then erased it, then set the phone face down. The hair shop downstairs clicked off their lights. I washed a bowl and a fork, not because they were dirty, but because my hands wanted a task. When my phone buzzed again, it was Trinity. You at home? Yes, I wrote. You want me to swing by? No. Sleep, I sent. She liked it and left it alone. Saturday, my alarm went off at the same brutal 4:40. I layered up, checked the window, empty space where the Corolla should be, and left. The numero 12 was a rumor that early, so I walked. I made it by 5:58, breath tight, and rolled the shutter up. Edward glanced at the clock when he came in and didn't say anything. That was a gift. I moved faster. Mid-morning, I stepped out back on a 10-minute break and sat on the stoop with a pen and one of our long register receipts. On the top line, I wrote, bus fares, 2x250, Miao 5 €. Next line, lost early minutes, 45 total, Yaos 10.50. I hesitated, then added, car wash, 12 €. A little space below that, gas, R. I left a blank for ticket. The numbers lined up neat and small. The math did what it always does, made the air come back into my lungs. This isn't a fight if it's a bill. Layla pushed the back door with her hip and held out a coffee. You look like you're balancing a budget back here. I am, I said, folding the receipt and tucking it into my apron. How's the case? Down to 4 croissants and a dozen stars. She took a sip of her own coffee. Any movement? Aunt Angela says he's doing something for Uncle William. Layla made a face like she'd bitten into a lemon seed. Of course he is. Inside, I knocked out another round of baguettes and pretzels. The rush smoothed and broke. At 2:12, Garrett texted, BBQ tomorrow. You coming? I stared at the screen. He hadn't answered, where? He hadn't said ticket. He was inviting me to eat ribs on the same breath he'd used to borrow my car. What time? I typed. After church, he wrote. Uncle W's. Bring those pretzels. I didn't answer. I wiped down the stainless, counted tips, set tomorrow's proofing. When we shut down at 4, I locked the side door and felt the familiar ache move from my calves up into my shoulders. I walked the first blocks home on tired legs. Then the Nuxert 12 came when it came. I let it take me the rest of the way because I was done being proud. At home, I ate standing up. Leftover pasta, slice of bread, and opened my old laptop. I pulled up a simple invoice template I use when people order custom cookies. I changed, thank you for your order, to payment due upon receipt. I typed my name and phone at the top, then added line items, gas, parking ticket, car wash, 12 porn. I left the bus fares and the early minutes off. Clean and undeniable is better than right in every corner. Total, Holstam. T8. I printed 2 copies and slid them to the edge of the table to dry. The printer made that slow grinding noise that says it's close to retirement, and I patted it like a creaky dog. My phone buzzed. Trinity. Spare key in your bag? I looked at the nail by the light switch. The key hung there like it always does. Ordinary and important. Not yet, I wrote. Put it in, she sent. Just in case. I stood up, took the key off the nail, and put it in the small inner pocket of my canvas bag with one of the printouts. The paper's edge scratched my knuckle. I zipped the pocket and felt the weight of the metal. Done asking, I thought. I don't need permission to collect what's mine. I showered, set out my clothes, and laid my bus pass lanyard on top. I set my alarm for the same punishing time. Sleep didn't come easy, but it came. Sunday, the sky was a pale wash at 6:10 when I sat on the edge of my bed and scrolled. Charlotte Lee had a new album, Family BBQ at the Murrays, with 3 fire emojis and a line of little steak stickers. The first photo was a stack of paper plates and a pack of buns. The second was a close-up of her tabby asleep on a folding chair. The third was a wide shot of Uncle William's backyard, wooden fence, the big grill he babies, long table with a red check cloth, and behind the grill, half hidden by a cooler, my teal bumper sticker peeked out from the edge of a silver trunk. I zoomed in until pixels broke. The corner of my license plate, a smudge of pollen on the taillight. My car, sitting pretty by the gate like it hadn't worked a day all week. I sent Layla a message before I left my apartment. If I'm late tomorrow, can you cover the first hour? I'll swap you Wednesday. It was Sunday, my day off, but Monday comes fast and I didn't want to gamble with the open. She replied with a thumbs up and, yeah, you good? Working on it, I wrote back. I slid the spare key from the inner pocket of my bag into my palm and tucked one of the printed invoices behind it. The paper had softened at the edges from being handled. I locked my door, walked past the dark hair shop downstairs, and caught the next bus toward Uncle William's neighborhood. The bus was mostly quiet, 2 kids sharing a bag of chips, a man asleep against the window. I watched the stops roll past and let the motion settle me. The closer I got, the calmer I felt. like I was clocking into another kind of shift. I wasn't going to argue. I was going to collect. Uncle William lives past the river, near a park with a busted fountain. By the time I turned onto his street, I could hear the bounce of music and the chop of tongs against metal. Cars lined the curb. The front yard had folding chairs out like a shoreline. Charlotte's laugh carried from the porch. I smelled charcoal, sweet sauce, and cut grass. I walked in through the side gate because family doesn't knock at a barbecue. The yard was full enough to blur. Cousins at the table, a card game going, kids running a tire in circles. Aunt Angela stood near the grill with a dish towel over her shoulder, checking buns like they were appointments. Garrett wasn't in my first sweep of faces. That was fine. My car sat by the back gate, dusted with a soft film of pollen like it had been sitting under a tree all week. Seeing it there hit like a glass of water after a long walk. I didn't touch the hood. I didn't look around to see who was watching. I walked straight to the driver door, slid the spare key into the lock, and opened it. I sat in my seat and closed the door. It felt like church. The smell was familiar and not my hand sanitizer, a ghost of barbecue smoke, something sweet and stale. There was a random sunglasses arm on the passenger floor mat, a napkin tucked into the side pocket. The dash had a smear I hadn't left. My bus pass lanyard swung against my chest and thumped once as I leaned forward. I put my bag in the passenger seat and reached for the glove box. The latch clicked the way it always does, a little sticky, then let go. A crumpled white slip tumbled out and into my lap. City of Parking Enforcement at the top in blue. I smoothed it against my knee and read the black print. Violation, no parking, street cleaning. Location, 3rd and Juniper date, Arts, time, Friday, 1:22 p.m. amount. Due, 85 Zordars. Madison's message had been 1:47 that day. My mouth made a small shape around the number and then went flat. The ticket had a faint grease fingerprint on one corner. Someone had balled it and shoved it in here. I looked into the glove box, insurance card, registration, an old map, a takeout menu I didn't recognize. No note. Outside, a burst of laughter went up near the table. A kid shrieked and something clattered. The grill hissed. The world kept its sound. In the car, everything narrowed to the rectangle in my hands, and the way the paper had creases that didn't belong to me. I set the ticket on my thigh and took out the invoice. I didn't write on it yet. I just laid the two pieces of paper side by side, edges touching, like they were agreeing. I ran my thumb along the blank line after parking ticket, fart, and then left it alone. Someone knocked lightly on the roof. 3 knuckles. Not hard. I didn't look up. Not yet. I took in the rest. Gas gauge under half. A small ash in the cup holder I keep empty. My phone charger unplugged and looped like a question. My seat was a click back from where I keep it. Small adjustments that add up. I picked up the ticket again and folded it once. Crisp. I slid it into the pocket of my hoodie, zipped it. Then I reached into the glove box and removed anything that wasn't mine. The takeout menu, a stub from a movie theater, a straw wrapper. I put them in the side door pocket to hand back later if anyone asked. I don't throw away other people's trash unless they pay me to. Through the windshield, I could see Aunt Angela turn her head, scan the yard, and clock me in the car. Her mouth pressed, then softened like she decided on a tone. Garrett's laugh floated from the far side of the grill, easy and bright. He still hadn't seen me. That was also fine. I locked the car door out of habit, rolled down the window 2 inches for air, and rested my hand on the invoice. My breath came easy. This was just logistics. The papers were in place. The car was here. The number was printed, not a fight. Then I popped the glove box again, checked for anything else I needed to see, and the corner of another folded paper flashed. I tugged it free. It was a gas receipt from Thursday night. 3812, station on Oak and 5th. I set it with the ticket and let the edges line up. I looked up when a shadow slid across the open gate. Garrett was finally heading my way, grinning at someone behind him. I kept my seat. I kept my calm. The yard went on around us. The slip with $85 on it sat warm from my leg. Garrett was halfway to me, grin on, when I slid the invoice onto the steering wheel and clicked my pen. I printed in small block letters, parking ticket, 85 $0 gas, 38 $0 car wash, 12 $0 total, $135. The gas receipt in the cup holder said 38 out. I rounded down. Consider it a family discount. I tucked the ticket into my hoodie, folded the invoice once, and popped the trunk with the lever by my knee. The latch thunked. I stepped out into the sunlight and walked to the back. The trunk told the story of the week and other people's priorities. A big blue cooler with a sticker, half peeled on one corner. 2 folding chairs, metal, scuffed, a roll of paper towels, a loose water bottle, a tangle of someone's jumper cables that weren't mine. I lifted the cooler, heavier than it looked, sloshing somewhere inside, and set it down by my feet. Then one chair, then the other, legs biting the grass a little before settling. Hey, hey! Tobias's voice floated from the card table like I'd cracked a piñata. He was in a tank top, cards fanned in his hand, mouth already tilted toward a laugh. Jazz, what you doing? Setting up VIP. I put the trunk down halfway so it wouldn't slam. Collecting, I said. Garrett arrived with that loose walk he uses when he wants to look unbothered. There you are, he said, like he'd been looking for me. He glanced at the chairs, the cooler, then at me. You should have told me you were coming. I'd have brought the keys. I don't need your keys, I said. I have mine. I held up the spare. My bus pass lanyard tapped my chest and swung once in the heat. He watched it, then looked away. He reached for the cooler handle. I put my foot lightly on the strap and didn't make a show of it. I unfolded the invoice and read it the way I read totals across the counter at work. Even and clear. Parking ticket, 85. Gas, 38. Car wash, 12. Total is 135. You can cash it or transfer it. When you square it, you get the cooler and chairs back. He blinked at me like I'd told a joke which needed time. Then he huffed out a laugh. A gas line? You're extra, Jazz. And a car wash? It's pollen. It's ash in the cup holder and fingerprints on a ticket, I said, still even. And the gas receipts in the car. I rounded down. Tobias snorted. She got receipts, he said to nobody, enjoying himself. Garrett made a face, the kind he pulls when he wants to make me feel like I'm being dramatic on purpose. You serious right now? In the middle of a cookout? He hooked his thumb toward the grill like the presence of meat-canceled math. City of Parking Enforcement is serious, I said. I nodded at the slip visible in my hoodie pocket. So am I. 135. Then you can load your cooler. He shifted his weight, reached for the cooler again, like if he got his hand on it, the conversation would evaporate. I moved it closer to my foot without taking my eyes off him. My voice didn't change. I'm not rolling the cooler until you pay, I said. It's collateral. A couple of heads turned. Charlotte edged closer with a paper plate and a curious angle to her eyebrows. The card game hushed. The grill hissed and popped, and Uncle William lifted a lid and didn't say anything, just looked over once and took in the pieces like he was checking the coals. Collateral? Garrett repeated, the word like gum he didn't know how to chew. Come on, it's me. It is, I said, and it's my car. He laughed again, quick and sharp. You could have just asked me later. Why you making this a whole scene? He motioned like I dragged a spotlight out. I asked, I said, All week. He opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked past me, maybe for an exit line, maybe for his mother. Aunt Angela had been watching from near the buns. I saw the moment her eyes took in the bus pass lanyard against my shirt. Something in her face changed. Soft first, then sharper. "Hold on," she said, stepping in, voice pitched to travel across a yard without being a shout. "Jasmine's been taking the bus to open? While you've had her car?" The words hung over the patio like a lid. The hush that followed was a real thing. It settled on shoulders and quieted Tobias mid-smirk. Somewhere near the fence, a soda fizzed in a cup. Nobody moved. Garrett's smile slipped, like butter off warm bread. He looked at me, then at his mother, then back at the cooler. He suddenly didn't want that much. I held the invoice steady in my hand, the numbers clear in the sun. The yard had stopped to listen. Silence sat down on the yard like another guest. You could hear the grill breathe. You could hear a kid whisper, "Uh-oh," and get shushed. Garrett's mouth worked once, then stopped. He didn't look at me. He looked at Uncle William, like maybe the grown-up in the room would bail him out the way time has a few times before. Uncle William didn't move from the grill. He set the tongs on the side tray, wiped his palm on a towel, and met my eyes. One small nod. Not dramatic. Just a yes, like a ticket stub torn clean. Then he looked at his son. I kept my voice level. "You'll get the cooler and chairs back when you square it." Garrett made a show of digging in his pocket for his phone, like he was humoring me. "You're making this weird," he muttered, screen already lighting his face. "Could have just asked me later." "I asked all week," I said. Tobias shifted in his chair at the card table, his grin sliding off. He stared at his cards like they'd developed new rules. Aunt Angela stayed near the buns, hands still, eyes on her son. She wasn't smoothing now. Garrett flicked through apps, stopped, then looked up. "What's your handle?" "Same as my number," I said. "Transfer, not a request." I held up the invoice so he could read the total again without asking me to say it a third time. His jaw worked. The case on his phone had a chip on the corner. For a second, I thought he might still go for the cooler and make it a tug. He didn't. He typed. The angle of his shoulders said he wanted to be anywhere else. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I glanced down. $135 received. The small relief wasn't joy. It was the click of a latch seating where it should. "Paid," Garrett said, trying for easy like he'd done me a favor. He didn't meet my eyes. "Thank you," I said. No extra words. I folded the invoice and slid it into my bag. I lifted the cooler by the handle and passed it to him. Then the first chair, then the second. Transaction complete. He took them without a joke. Tobias let out a breath like he'd been holding one. Charlotte's paper plate creaked quietly in her hands. I opened my driver door. The car smelled like smoke and cheap cologne and my own hand sanitizer. I put the key in the ignition, but didn't turn it yet. Garrett stepped closer, hand on the top of the door like he thought he could claim the space by touching it. "Keys?" he said, palm up. A little laugh like we were back on good terms. "I'll bring it by later." I looked at his hand, then at his face. "This is my car," I said. "We're done," he blinked. Confusion, then a flicker of heat. I'm really going to drive my car," I said. "Drop my set at my place. You can put it through the mail slot." He opened and closed his hand. He didn't argue with Uncle William 10 feet away. He didn't argue with his mother's eyes on him. He stepped back. The door was mine again. Aunt Angela cleared her throat. "Jasmine," she said, softer than I've heard her in a while. "You eat something before you go?" "I'm good," I said. It wasn't a spite. It was a fact. Uncle William lifted the tongs and set another rack to the cool side of the grill. "Drive safe," he said, like he always does when anyone leaves his yard, and that was permission enough for the air to move again. I turned the key. The engine caught like it remembered me. I checked my mirrors, which were wrong, and clicked them back to where they belong. My seat slid forward a click. The bus pass on my lanyard tapped my sternum and fell still. Garrett stood with the cooler at his feet and the chairs hooked over 2 fingers. He wasn't smiling. Tobias pretended to study the grill like it had math on it. Charlotte's phone was down at her side for once. A kid somewhere said, "Can I have another soda now?" And the world remembered how to talk. I eased the car forward, slow past the gate, careful not to clip the post. My hands felt steady on the wheel. I didn't look in the rear view until I was out on the street. When I did, the rectangle of the yard framed my family like a picture I knew well and had finally hung straight. At the stop sign, I put it in park and pulled my phone. My thumb found the family chat. My message came out clean, the way you write an address on a box you want to arrive. I hit send. The notification whooshed away, small and final. Then I turned left, checked my mirrors again, and let the Corolla do what it's for. I didn't overthink the message. At the stop sign, I typed it clean into the family chat. New rule. I don't lend my car. I offer rides if I'm driving. Trinity hearted it in under a minute. A couple of eye-roll emojis floated up from the cousins who react to everything. Uncle William tapped a single check mark. Then a private message from Aunt Angela. "I'm sorry, Jasmine. You're right." "Thank you," I wrote back. She sent a period, then nothing else. That was new. I turned right, drove straight to the gas station on Oak and 5th, and put 38 Zora's hours in, nozzle clicking off just under the last tick. Then the car wash on Larkin, the $12 quick wash with free vacuums. I fed the machine, watched soap curtain the windshield, and listened to the thump of the tracks under the tires. In the vacuum bay, I pulled the mats and took my time. Ash out of the cup holder, napkin scraps, the straw wrapper, the movie stub I hadn't asked for. He'd paid me. I tossed the trash. I wiped the dash with the cheap citrus wipes I keep in the glove box and clicked my seat and mirrors back to my marks. The car smelled like oranges and rain for a change. At home, I slid the spare key back onto the nail by the light switch, felt it settle into its old place. I put the second copy of the invoice into the manila folder where I keep registrations and oil change receipts. I sat at my table with my laptop and the ticket. The city's payment portal was ugly but worked. You enter the citation number and plate, and it pops up your debt like a magic trick. $85 due. I paid it with my debit and took a screenshot for my records. Money moved cleanly. His transfer in, the ticket out, the wash and gas done, math balanced. The knot that had been sitting under my ribs all week loosened like something cut free. Monday, I left my apartment at 5 and took my own keys off the hook. The hair shop downstairs was dark and tidy. I drove, parked in my usual spot behind the bakery, and rolled the shutter at 5:56. Edward clocked me with his eyes when he came in. "Good," he said. And that was it. A simple word that landed. Layla slid a tray into the oven and glanced over. "Handled?" she asked. "Handled," I said. "We didn't turn it into a story. The croissants rose and we did too." At 10:03, my phone buzzed. "Garrett, can you take me to the store?" I looked at the morning list. Another round of baguettes, a cookie order pickup at 11:30, and thought about my day. "I can swing by Cedar at 6:30 after my shift," I wrote. "If you're outside, I'll take you. If not, I can't wait." "K," he sent after a pause. At 6:29, I pulled up to his block out of my way by 2 turns. He wasn't there. I let the engine idle for 2 minutes, then turned left toward home. My phone buzzed at 6:37. My bad. It's cool. It was cool. The next morning I woke to a text from him. You free later to run me to DMV? I answered the way I answer custom orders. I have a window 2 to 3. If you're ready at 2, I can take you. Otherwise, I can't. He said, bet. And when 2 o'clock came, he was on the sidewalk with his jacket on, quiet. I drove him and turned the radio low. He didn't ask for the keys. He didn't make promises. He thanked me when I dropped him. Quick and real. That was enough. Charlotte posted more photos from the barbecue that night. Dogs, plates, somebody's dominoes, no cars. She DM'd me a, you good? And I sent back a smile and a loaf emoji. Madison stopped in on Tuesday for day-olds. I tucked a scone into her bag and said, thanks again. She said, girl, like the whole week was one long shared eye roll. By midweek, the family chat shifted. Someone asked who could pick up soda for next Sunday. A cousin asked me for the number of my car wash. Aunt Angela dropped a recipe for peach cobbler and added, proud of you, Jasmine. Trinity sent me a photo of her new planner tabs because she knows what I like. I didn't make a speech about boundaries. I drove my own car. I hung my bus pass on the peg by my door and left it there, not out of spite, just out of readiness. The new rule wasn't a threat. It was logistics. It took the heat out of the ask. When someone needed a ride, they asked if I was going that way. If I was, I said yes. If I wasn't, I said no. It wasn't heavy. Friday, Edward nodded at my on-time clock-in and handed me a note from the owner about a seasonal special. A quiet week at work is its own kind of blessing. My calves didn't burn from a dark walk. My phone charger was plugged back in where it belongs, and when I turned the key, the engine sounded like mine. Garrett still has charm. He'll still say tomorrow to somebody. It just won't be to my keys. He handled his errands with his own feet or by asking on my terms. Aunt Angela stopped answering for him like she was the receipt. Uncle William flipped ribs, and when I left his yard that next Sunday with a full plate, he said, drive safe, same as always. The justice wasn't dramatic. It was practical. Money covered, ticket paid, ash vacuumed. The rules stated and held. The week shook loose. And the next time someone says, tomorrow, it's to the bus.